Have you ever caught yourself buying something and then days passed, weeks passed, months passed, and even years passed, without that purchase ever really improving your life, your income, or your future? Well, you've made a bad decision. Again, most people think they can't afford things because they don't have enough money. But the real issue, they don't have a system for knowing when they can actually afford to spend. Today, we're going to fix that. I'm going to give you the exact framework that wealthy people use to decide when spending makes sense and when it's just emotional decision-making in disguise. Let's get into it. The 10 times rule. All right, here's the first rule, and honestly, if you only take one thing from this video, make it this one. You should only buy something if you have at least 10 times the price saved or a net worth. Let me say that again because I know some of you just glazed over that. 10 times. If you want a car that costs $40,000, you should only buy it when you have at least $400,000 in net worth or liquid assets. If you want those $200 designer shoes, you should have at least $2,000 saved that wouldn't be affected by that purchase. Now, I already know what you're thinking. That's insane. Nobody does that. Palad never buys anything. And that's exactly the point. This rule forces you to ask yourself, do I actually need this, or do I just want it because everyone else has it? Say you have $150,000 saved up and you need a car. A $100,000 car might seem affordable because technically you have the money, but do you have at least $1 million? Nope. So by the 10 times rule, you should be looking at a $15,000 car instead. Why? Because spending $100,000 when you only have $150,000 would destabilize your entire financial foundation. One emergency, one bad month, one unexpected expense, and you're scrambling. But a $15,000 car, that barely makes a dent. You could pay cash, still have $135,000 left, and sleep easy at night. This is how you make purchases feel easy instead of stressful. When you have 10 times the price of something, buying it doesn't even register as a significant financial decision. And that's the point. Spending should feel effortless when you're truly ready. Ask yourself, is this purchase actually useful? Before you spend money on anything, and I mean anything, ask yourself this one simple question. What does this actually improve in my life? Does it increase your productivity? Does it improve your health? Does it directly or indirectly increase your income? Or is it just emotional satisfaction wrapped in a purchase? Because that's the brutal truth. Most purchases people make are not useful. The average American spends $282 per month on impulse buys. That's over $3,300 a year on stuff they didn't plan for and probably don't need. Think about that. $3,300. That could be invested, that could be earning returns, that could be building your future. Instead, it's gone on random stuff you'll forget about in 3 months. Useful purchases support your long-term growth. They're investments, even if they're not traditional investments. Useless purchases, they create regret. And usually, they create regret faster than you'd think. Think in opportunity cost. Now it's time to talk about something most people completely ignore: opportunity cost. Every dollar you spend is a dollar you can't invest. Every purchase is a trade-off, whether you realize it or not. For example, let's say you spend $5,000 on designer clothes. In the moment, it feels good. You look better, you feel more confident, maybe you even get some compliments. But here's what you're not thinking about. That $5,000 could have been invested in the stock market. At an average annual return of 10%, that money would be worth about $13,000 in 10 years. In 20 years, over $33,000. In 30 years, nearly $87,000. You didn't just spend $5,000. You spent $87,000 of future wealth for clothes that'll be out of style in 2 years. That's opportunity cost. Or think about it this way. That $5,000 could have been invested in learning a high-income skill like coding, video editing, copywriting, sales. Skills that could earn you an extra $10,000. $20,000 or $50,000 plus per year for the rest of your career, but instead, it went to luxury clothing that generates zero returns. Now, I'm not saying never buy nice things. I'm saying understand the trade-off. When you spend money on something that doesn't produce returns, you're actively choosing to give up future wealth for present consumption. And look, sometimes that's worth it. If you're financially stable, have your investments in place, and want to treat yourself, fine. But most people are making these trades unconsciously, without ever stopping to think about what they're actually giving up. Luxury items rarely generate returns. Investments always do. It's that simple. Watch out for external pressure and sales manipulation. Here's something you need to understand. Every time you walk into a store, scroll through an ad, or talk to a salesperson, someone is trying to manipulate you into spending, and they're really good at it. Before buying anything, ask yourself, am I choosing this freely or am I being pushed? The reason it works is simple. They're not appealing to logic, they're targeting your emotions. A salesperson might say, I won't show you our luxury clothing because it's probably too expensive for you. This can push you to prove them wrong by buying something you don't need. They play on your ego, pride, insecurity, or desire to fit in. Or they might say, we'll show you our luxury line because I can tell you can afford it. They make you feel like buying something will prove something about you, even though it really proves nothing. In both cases, the goal is manipulation. This happens everywhere. Online, in stores, in ads, and on social media. In fact, social media is designed to trigger FOMO, envy, and comparison. You see someone living a perfect life or using a perfect product, and suddenly you feel like you need it too. Most impulse purchases driven by this end in regret. The smart move is to pause and recognize what's happening. Step back. You don't need to prove anything to anyone, not to salespeople, not to your followers, not to strangers on the internet. Choosing not to spend is often the most powerful decision you can make, because it means you're in control, not them. Avoid lifestyle inflation. Okay, this one trips up almost everyone. Here's the deal. When your income goes up, there's this natural urge to upgrade everything. Bigger apartment, fancier car, more expensive dinners, you name it. It feels good, right? Rewarding yourself for working hard. But here's the problem. If every time you earn more, you immediately spend more, your bank account doesn't grow. You're still living paycheck to paycheck, just at a higher level. That's what people mean when they say, lifestyle inflation keeps you broke. You're earning more, but your spending grows at the same pace, or faster. This is where spending rules come in. They're like guardrails for your money. They help you enjoy the fruits of your labor without letting your new income get swallowed by unnecessary upgrades. Maybe you give yourself a small treat, but you save or invest the rest. By holding off on lifestyle upgrades until you really need them, or at least until you've secured your financial foundation, you give your wealth room to grow. That's how you start turning a bigger paycheck into real financial freedom instead of just a fancier version of the same stress. Secure your financial base first. Before you make any major purchase, you need to make sure you have 3 to 6 months of living expenses saved. Period. Non-negotiable. This is your financial safety net. This is what turns financial decisions from emotional reactions into rational choices. Let me explain why this matters so much. Right now, 55% of Americans have 3 months of expenses saved, which means 45% don't. 27% of Americans have no emergency savings at all. Do you know what happens when you don't have an emergency fund? Every unexpected expense becomes a crisis. Your car breaks down? Crisis. Medical bill? Crisis. Lose your job? Absolute disaster. And what do people without emergency funds do in these situations? They go into debt. They put it on a credit card at 22% interest. They take out high-interest loans. They borrow from friends and family. And then they're stuck in a debt cycle that's incredibly hard to escape. But when you have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved, everything changes. Unexpected expenses aren't emergencies anymore, they're just inconveniences. You can handle them without stress, without panic, without derailing your entire financial life. This safety net also gives you options. If you hate your job, you can quit and take time to find something better. If you want to start a business, you have a runway. If you need to help family, you can do it without destroying your own finances. Security creates freedom, and you can't have security until you have that foundation in place. So before you even think about that luxury purchase, that nice car, that expensive vacation, ask yourself, do I have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved? If the answer is no, your job isn't to spend, your job is to build that foundation first. Separate needs from wants. Now, do you actually know the difference between a need and a want? Because most people don't. Or worse, they convince themselves that wants are needs to justify spending. Let me make this crystal clear. Needs are things that keep you alive, healthy, and productive. Food, shelter, basic transportation, healthcare, tools for your work. Wants are upgrades, luxury, and comfort. The fancy car instead of the reliable used one. The designer clothes instead of the functional ones. The expensive apartment instead of the modest one. The problem is, We're really good at convincing ourselves that wants are needs. I need the new iPhone because my old one is so slow. No, you don't. You want the new iPhone. Your old one still works. I need to live in this expensive neighborhood for networking. Do you? Or do you just want the status? I need this $80,000 truck for my business. Do you actually haul things? Or would a $15,000 used truck do the exact same job? See, confusing wants with needs is how people destroy their finances without even realizing it. They're spending money they don't have on things they don't need to impress people they don't like. And then they wonder why they're broke. So please, be brutally honest with yourself. Strip away the justifications, the rationalizations, the stories you tell yourself. Because the moment you start being honest about this distinction, your spending will change overnight. Use a waiting rule. Anyway, the easiest way to stop wasting money? Implement a waiting rule. For any non-essential purchase, wait 24 to 48 hours before buying. That's it. If you still want it after the emotion fades, reassess logically. If you don't, congratulations. You just saved yourself money and regret. The thing is, the average person makes nearly 10 impulse purchases per month. But impulse purchases aren't really about the product. They're about the feeling in the moment. You're bored, so you scroll and buy. You're stressed, so you shop for relief. You see something that triggers FOMO, so you purchase to avoid missing out. But here's the thing about emotions. They fade fast. That overwhelming desire you felt in the moment, give it 24 hours and there's a good chance it'll be gone. The product you were convinced you needed, turns out you can live without it just fine. Most impulsive desires disappear with time. And the ones that don't, those are the purchases worth considering. The 24 to 48 hour rule has probably saved me tens of thousands of dollars over the years. It's the simplest, most effective spending strategy I know. Think long term. Every time you're about to spend money, ask yourself one question. Does this purchase move me closer to my long-term goals or further away? Because as I said, short-term pleasure often delays long-term freedom. A good way to see this is to picture your life a few years from now. Financial independence, your own business, traveling without money worries. Now compare that vision to the purchase in front of you. Will it help you get there or just give a fleeting thrill? Investing in courses, tools, or your health moves you forward. Spending on things you don't really need pulls you back. Yet we're wired to chase quick satisfaction, and that's why so many people never reach their big goals. Small decisions that feel good today can quietly pile up into a life that doesn't match your dreams. Every purchase is a vote for the life you want. Make choices that future you will thank you for, not regret. Spending should feel easy now. To wrap things up, here's the simplest rule of all. If a purchase creates stress, anxiety, or guilt, you can't afford it yet, period. I don't care if you technically have the money. I don't care if you can make the payment. If buying something makes you feel uncomfortable, that's your gut telling you. This isn't the right time. The right time to spend is when it barely affects your financial trajectory. When you buy something and it doesn't even register as a significant expense, that's when you can afford it. When you don't have to check your bank account afterward. When you don't have to justify it to yourself. When you don't have to rearrange other parts of your budget to make it work. That's the goal, and for most people that means waiting, sometimes waiting years. But here's what happens when you wait. You build wealth, you create options, you gain freedom, and then when you do spend, it feels effortless. Because you're spending from abundance, not scarcity. Spending should feel easy. If it doesn't, you're doing it too soon. Closing. Look, I get it. Everything I just said goes against what society tells you. Society says, buy now, pay later. Society says you deserve it. Society says everyone else is doing it, so why aren't you? But society also has most people broke, stressed, and stuck in jobs they hate to pay for things they don't need. You don't have to be part of that. You can choose differently. Because at the end of the day, money is just a tool. And like any tool, it only works when you know how to use it properly. Alright, that's it for this video. If this changed how you think about spending, do me a favor and hit that like button. Also, let me know what you want me to cover next. Should I break down how to actually build that emergency fund? How to invest when you're starting from zero? How to escape lifestyle inflation? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and please make smart decisions. See you in the next one.